All right, Kirby, we just did two videos on this hurricane, and I got another topic on this hurricane too. I thought you were going to touch on it, but you didn't. But I think this is the first time, and I mean, it's also because I'm just a new investor, but this is the first time that I, as a real estate landlord or investor, have experienced not like huge issues, but had to, actually get more involved with the aftermath of dealing with the hurricane. So, what are some things that have happened, maybe to some of your properties? Because we just had two back to back, hit it in both directions. Funny. But what are some things that have maybe happened, and what was your strategy or plan in, handling these problems rather than just saying, "Oh, woe is me," "Oh, this happened." So, like, what was the game plan after these disasters?
I live by an adage, always be prepared and not be surprised. Be prepared for everything and not surprised by anything. Just like when these hurricanes, we was like Drake, we went back to back on these. But before this, I posted in the Discord, hey, for real estate owners, especially that's in the path of the hurricanes, be on the lookout. You're gonna have you might have capital problems if you're running too thin, meaning that these hurricanes are going to knock out power, is going to put your tenants in a financial situation where, do I pay the rent or do I do what's necessary if I got power or if I need to leave? Do I use that rent money to take care of my family? So I said, be prepared for you to have issues with collecting rent during this time. And just magically, the first one, Helena or Helene, what was it? Helena? That's what it was.
Eileen?
Helena came right at the first of the month. It came right at when rent was due.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to bring up that, because those decisions, and families got to make business decisions now. It's gonna be pay the rent or make sure my family's okay. No matter if they wanted to leave or whatever, or power went out and now they gotta spend extra capital to feed the family or whatever, what have you, to make sure that they're okay. Um, but going back years, I don't even know the name of the hurricane, but this was maybe 2 years ago. The one that just hit Fort Myer Beach a couple years ago. Uh, my rental property is more inland, but how the hurricane was swirling, it was lifting up the shingles on my rental property, and water was sliding between the shingles. Of course, that created water damage, and then it took weeks, months for people to get out there to check on people, because all the damage at Fort Myer Beach and avenues to get to rental properties. So with all that water sliding up under the shingles, it destroyed one of the bathrooms. Fixed the bathroom, but the company didn't do remediation to look to see if it was mold. So after I remodeled the bathroom, then the whole bathroom and then the rest of the house was covered in mold. So that was another $8,000 to do mold remediation. And then after you do mold remediation, for most of it, you got to replace a lot of that stuff that got mold. All the drywall has to be replaced. All the drywall has to be replaced. Then all so that's tape, plaster, paint, putting back the bathroom that I already remodeled, having to do that again. So I think that was $20,000 that I paid out of pocket. And I know people saying, "Oh, why didn't you use your insurance?" Well, at the time when I first started it, I just was like, whatever. It cost maybe it was like $3,000 to remodel the bathroom after the first incident, and then I was like, well, I'll just pay for it because my deductible is like 3,500, so it wouldn't made a point to do that, to pay for insurance, because the deductible was higher than what it was going to cost. Then the mold mediation came, and then I could have reverted back to the insurance, and then I just said, forget it. I'll just pay for the whole cost and don't have to deal with higher insurance premiums, because it's already going to be high anyway, and then battling with insurance companies after the fact, because the tenant's already been in that situation for about a month now, and they got kids, and I didn't want further things to prolong this, to go through an insurance company to get it done. So I just paid for it to get it done. I've had maybe 3, 4 years ago, hurricane hit up there in the Pensacola area. and then the tree almost landed on the house. It was a little roof damage still, not from that tree, but from other stuff. So fixed the roof. Tenants went and cut down the trees. Uh, Dealt with that. Even gave the tenant, money off the rent because he went out there on his own and cut down that tree because it would save me a whole lot more money. So I've had that with the recent one, Helene. My property's in Georgia. They got hit. Uh, One, power lines came down, trees came down, no power, no water. One tree went through uh, the window, and actually, still to this day, it's so bad in South Georgia that nobody can even get to the house right now to actually do anything to improve that situation. So hopefully, I think the tenants, put a board up to block that issue in that situation. But those are the things that I've dealt with and things that I'm dealing with right now during these hurricanes. Now, this last one, Milton, that just came through, the only one that was really in the path of getting hurt is the same one in Lehigh Acres where the roof shingles came up. I haven't had a report from that. I'm waiting for the report from that, but I'll see how that go. But going back to, tenants making a business decision. I still don't know what the final decision on the rent collections is from Georgia from the first one from Helene. I don't know what the rent situation is like that. So still waiting to get with the property manager to see what the issue is with that. But again, always having capital reserves to be prepared for that situation if it comes, if they don't pay the rent. And I understand families going through situations. So if they don't pay the rent, I still have the capital to still pay the mortgage and everything else like nothing happened. And then we'll figure out with the tenants on how to get right later on. The first priority, of course, is their family.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, every property in some shape or form was I had some kind of effect to it after these storms that I own. I mean, one, and luckily, I mean, it wasn't like any huge issues. There was no like major damage or anything, but I mean, it's just things to take into consideration for those that want to invest in real estate. I mean, um, on the duplex, one of the tenants, he was about like a week late on paying rent, and that could have been because of having no power for going on. I think it was like 2 weeks up there. Um, the other tenant, a tree had fallen in the front yard, and it was a headache. I mean, just trying to find somebody to remove that tree. And I had found, multiple companies, but they were so busy because it's all small businesses up there. It's not like you have a major like corporation just cutting down trees up there. So a lot of these small businesses, they were just packed, and it's a very community centered environment up there in the South. And so, like one of the businesses, which I understand, he said, "Look, I'm working on the houses that have trees on top of them," which I can't blame him. Take care of those people first. But he had told me there was 40 properties that he had that had trees on top of the houses, and this is in a small town. So I mean, I can only imagine like the destruction up there, and like just looking on the maps too, like you could see roads blocked off and everything. So that was difficult, because you still have a problem at hand as a landlord. You got to get the tree out of the yard, but at least it wasn't like more devastating, like it fell through the house or anything. But that was one thing to handle. And then after that, then this hurricane coming through, and I had the same situation you were saying. The tenant was I had a discussion with him because he was saying basically what you had just said. Families are going to make business decisions, and there was no power. The septic had gotten backed up because of the flooding, so there was issues at hand, and he wanted to go basically into a hotel and have that discounted and stuff from the rent. So it was something that you got to be prepared for these situations. But like you say too, like having capital alleviated stress from me. Having capital on hand for a worst case scenario, if I can't collect rent, if I gotta deal with these problems temporarily, at least I have the capital to withstand these issues and then resolve the matter afterwards. So having capital is very important in this, I would say. But yeah, those are things, I mean, that just you have to take into consideration as a landlord, because it's not as easy as just buying the property and then you have, free cash flow for eternity. So there's always going to be problems at hand, but you have to be prepared.
Right. And for the landlords and for the tenants out there, now the I always use this adage, no matter what happens, the bank is still going to want their money. Do the banks have programs when they know that, you know, austere conditions come across like the hurricanes? I got an email from every bank that I have properties with. And they have programs that will alleviate the landlord from paying this month's mortgage, but it's going to cost the landlord more in the long run trying to get into their programs and do all that. The landlord, for the most part, they're going to keep paying the mortgage no matter what. And for the tenants out there, of course, I'm always going to say you take care of your family first and we'll figure it out. But me as a landlord, I didn't create the condition. So it's still on you to figure out and come up with a game plan on how this rent's going to be paid. Because again, the rent is being paid for the month prior. The rent is for the time that you spent. So you're still going to spend time in the property. I mean, yeah, you might had a week or something where stuff was, messed up, but the landlords, for the most part, now it is some lords out there. I'm not going to discount that, but for the most part, the landlords are going to fix all that situation. That's going to be capital that's going to come out of their pocket. That's going to be capital that until rents get raised 2 or 3 years from now, to the landlord will be able to recover those funds. All these hurricanes coming back to back, that don't put a lot of appreciation on properties because now only thing you can do is put more fear factor into it and be like, oh well, why do I want to spend money in Florida if they're gonna have hurricanes all the time? So it's not like, oh, it's gonna just keep appreciating, 20-30%, and we're still gonna make money. Money, it still costs to deal with these problems. And the landlord should deal with it because they made the investment. But as a tenant, you signed a contract. You got to figure out how to keep holding up your end of the game. So it's not a free get out of jail. It's not a get out of jail free card or paying rent. It's just being an adult and understand both sides have an obligation, and both sides need to handle the obligation. And this is not a landlord. Hey, you shouldn't do nothing because you didn't create the hurricane. You should do everything you can in your power to get that property back up as fast as possible so it's habitable for that tenant. If
Yeah.
you don't, that's shame on you, landlord. But a tenant just thinking, oh, because a hurricane came, I don't have to pay rent for as long as I don't want to. That's not good either. So just wanted to throw that out there. Alex, you got any more questions on the subject?
No, no, that's it. We'll close it out there. Guys, if you have any questions or comments, let us know down below. Don't forget to hit the like button, share, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one.